Good evening and welcome to The Debate. Joining us tonight, former Arsenal defender Matthew Upson and former Tottenham forward Darren Bent. On tonight's show, we ask who is the biggest team in North London. For decades, it's been Arsenal, but are Tottenham catching up? Key battles all over the pitch, but who will win the tactical battle on the touchline? We hear from both managers and Harry Kane too. Elsewhere, Everton have reportedly offered Watford £10 million for Marco Silva. We ask, what is a manager's worth? And after draws against Germany and Brazil, we look at England's chances in Russia next summer. Jose Mourinho says there are reasons for us to be hopeful. Plus, we will take your questions also. You can tweet us at Sky Sports PL using the hashtag #TheDebate.
For a long time, obviously, you were the dominant team in North London. Perhaps in recent seasons, Spurs...
For 20 years.
Exactly. And perhaps in the last year, Spurs have just edged their nose in front. Do you almost even see yourselves as underdogs this weekend?
No, not at all, no. You know, I think Tottenham is a good side, but we have the quality to win this game, and that's what we want to show.
For us, it's a massive challenge, because only in 1 year, or last year, we were above of them. Now, we need to believe that we are there and we deserve too much prize or credit. I think we need to build our project, we need to build our era too, and of course, we need to fight and try to win.
We have two fellas here, either side of the North London divide, Darren Bent and Matthew Upson. Coming off the back of what Arsene Wenger's just said, he said it with a smile, and we're talking about who is the biggest team, biggest club right now in North London. He was keen to stress there the history of what he's brought to this football club. Does that, for you, still make Arsenal the bigger club?
Yes, in a word, it does. You know, I don't think you can take that away from him and the football club. I think finishing below Spurs just for last season, out of the 20 years that he's referring to, doesn't make Spurs a bigger club than Arsenal. But what I will say is that in this game, what you did yesterday doesn't matter, and let alone what you did in the last 20 years. So for the moment, for the game Saturday, North London derby, that 20 years is irrelevant, and that's what makes football great. So Spurs will be going into that thinking we're in better position in the league, we're in good form, and that's why I think they'll really fancy their chances.
Darren, do you think Matt's right there in what he says about Arsenal? As we said, Arsene Wenger's keen to put it into perspective, isn't he, about the relative success, if you like, of Tottenham. But for you, is Arsenal still the bigger side?
Yeah, as Matty said there, I agree with him. To be fair, you can't really just discard what Arsene Wenger's done at Arsenal for the last 21 years. I mean, Tottenham have had a fantastic last couple of years. And as Matty said there, in derbies, it goes out the window. Form goes out the window. I mean, Tottenham will go to Arsenal fancying it because they're in good form, playing really good football. One of the probably hottest sides in the country at the moment. So they'll definitely fancy it. But for me, Arsenal at home, I don't think they lose many North London derbies at home. So it'll be difficult, and it should be an exciting game. Do
you get the feeling that we talk about the here and now with Spurs, but what Arsene Wenger's done is built a football club from the foundations upwards, hasn't he? He's had a huge impact on it. Do you get the same feeling at Spurs that Mauricio Pochettino is going to be able to do that and is going to leave a lasting legacy such as Arsene Wenger's?
Yeah, I mean, that's how it looks. I mean, probably the biggest worry for Spurs is someone coming and taking Pochettino, I guess, because he does look like he's laying the same foundations Arsene Wenger did. He's got a young English side with a lot of talent there. And I think they are definitely going in the right direction. I mean, the way they're playing the game at the moment is kind of similar to the way Arsenal Wenger had them playing, obviously, when he first got there. So it's definitely an exciting time for Spurs. But as I said, the biggest worry for them is someone trying to take Pochettino, I think.
Matt, do you see similarities with regard to Arsene Wenger's early years? From what we've seen with Mauricio Pochettino, we see these coaches come from abroad, the novelty factor's there, then they've got to impress everybody, the media, the fans, the players. Is there a similarity between when Arsene Wenger came over?
Definitely. I think you can draw comparisons. I feel when you listen to Mauricio Pochettino, he mentions a lot the project, doesn't he? I don't know, I've heard him a few times talk about the project, which makes me feel that he's excited about that. And when you talk about losing him, I think that's definitely a risk. But when you're part of a project like that, it's exciting to see it through, and you see the rewards and the accolades that Arsene Wenger's had for that over the years and what he did. But they're two clubs very much in a different moment for me. And Spurs are in that building phase of when Arsene came over and started to change the club and change the way they played. I think Pochettino is doing that, and he has the backing of the club to support him and in those changes.
Is that vital, the backing of the club? Because he wants to build an era, he said, doesn't he? He wants to be at the club a long time. But I mean, in the current state, not the current state of football, but the way managers receive him, the top managers move around from club to club to club. Is he going to be there for he says 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, and he talks about Arsene Wenger. It's a hell of a long time, isn't it?
It is, and I think in the modern game, you're more on the short-term future. But Spurs have delivered a fabulous training facility. They're delivering an amazing stadium. So when you couple it like that and you look at compare them to Arsenal, the infrastructure now, once that's finished, will be on par. It will be exactly similar, identical.
Yeah.
So he'll be in a position to be managing a top club which has a great vision. So that must be exciting for him.
Well, you mentioned infrastructure, Matt. When you're looking at, as you both agreed, you say Arsenal are the biggest club at this moment in time in North London. Does that infrastructure, that foundation that is building, give them the possibility to overtake Arsenal?
Yeah, but as I said, it's going to take time. I mean, it's not going to happen overnight, but the foundation he's laying is the right. They're getting the new stadium.
Is he afforded time in this day and age of football?
I think he will be, yeah, because I think he's such up and coming, and the way he's got Tottenham playing. I mean, Tottenham are a real force now. I mean, for many years, to be fair, even when I was there, we was always on the cusp of being one of the big boys, the top four. Never quite getting there, but he's got them in there and quite comfortably in there. To be fair, where they're now challenging for titles. They're not just trying to get into the top four. They believe they can win trophies, win the Premier League. So I think with them foundations and with this manager, they're going in the right direction. I certainly believe they feel they're good enough to win the Premier League.
Is part of that, and Arsenal, sorry, Matt, you can probably relate to perhaps the Arsenal side of this. Darren talks about how the team on the pitch and how they play. Mentally, there must be something in the seeds that he sowed so way back in Arsenal that team knew that they could win championships, could win leagues. For Tottenham, is it getting over that hurdle of winning that first Premier League to show that they can create this new era that they're talking about?
Yeah, I would say that, and in many ways it has changed a lot because you have clubs like Man City, Manchester United, who are outspending clubs like Tottenham like considerably, not just a little bit. We're talking quite a big difference in what they spend and wages, etc. So that's always going to be a real threat to a club like Spurs, and that they have to be doing something exceptionally with their group of players, which, in fairness to Pochettino, he has done and come very close to winning the Premier League and look in a good position now. So, yeah, I mean, I feel that they're laying the seeds for that type of challenge. And
conversely, I mean, we don't know whether Mesut Ozil wants to stay, Alexis Sanchez wants to stay. You mentioned the kind of pay structure at Tottenham, which, let's be honest, we're in no way talking about peanuts here. We're getting paid, but relatively, we're talking about some of the best young players in Europe, English players, that are getting paid a fraction, comparatively, of what players perhaps at Arsenal are doing. Yeah. It's some testament to the manager that he's that magnetic force that they're saying, yeah, show me where to sign. Obviously, finances come into it later on, but when you've got players at Arsenal, big players at Arsenal that are looking to go, for Tottenham to know that their players want to stay, that must be a huge step in the right direction.
It's massive. I can't, to actually create that atmosphere and even like an obligation in a way for the players to want to take part of the project. We talk about the project again. That's a word that I hear Mauricio Pochettino using all the time. Then the players are signed up for that. It's a huge tick in the box for the club because, like you say, in terms of salaries, they can maybe go to a different club and maybe double. It's that crazy, some of the money that's being paid, that they're good enough players to maybe earn that. So that's the challenge for Spurs, to keep that under wraps and to keep that going. And
another challenge that seems to have come into it in the last couple of days or so, it's been ongoing. We look at Jorge Mendes, who's looking to take Dele Alli on as a potential client. And Matt talks about potential, not troubles, but things to overcome in coming weeks. Is that something that Mauricio Pochettino has got to be very, very aware of? Because it seems at the moment the water's very calm, things are going in the right direction, but you never know who's in the ears of the star players, do you?
I don't think he's got anything to worry about because, to be fair, Daniel Levy, I think he's that block.
He's got that vice-like grip on the finances in and out of Spurs.
I mean, even when I was there and players want to leave, if it was right for the football club, then of course he'll do it. But I just think with Pochettino and having Daniel Levy having his back, regardless what the player wants to do. If Daniel Levy wants to keep a player at the club, he'll do it. And as a chairman, you've got to respect that. And Pochettino's got to love that because, as I said, he has got some right superstars in his team that can go for a lot of money. Dele Alli, Harry Kane, these guys could go for 150 million plus probably in today's market. So I think it's really positive from Pochettino that he's got Daniel Levy that was saying, hold on, doesn't matter. I don't care what their agents are telling them. They're not going anywhere.
Even someone like Mendes?
Even someone like Mendes. And Daniel Levy's shown before, I mean, he had to get a world record. Bale want to go to Real Madrid, and he had to get a world record fee for him. So I feel...
But did end up going, didn't he?
Eventually, after a couple of years, I think. I don't think it was straight away. So I believe with Daniel Levy, I don't think Pochettino's got much to worry about because he's always got Tottenham's best interests at heart, and if that means keeping a player there, even if the player wants to leave, then he'll keep him there.
Play devil's advocate for a minute for me, Matt. Play the cynic. Do you agree with what Darren's saying there? Do you think that that's possible for Levy to keep a lid on all these wonderful players?
I think while they're performing and while they're in a way like the assets of the football club is holding or gaining value, I think it makes his job a lot easier because the demand's there. And like Darren just said, I think what happens in those situations, it's about time, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like players might voice that or an agent might voice that, but then the club said, well, let's just have this one more season and then we'll talk again in the summer, just a way of putting things off. But eventually, if that draw's big enough and the number's big enough for Daniel Levy to look at and go, well, this is a great deal for the football club and it's going to help the football club move forwards, then maybe your star player leaves, in the case of Bale. But it's then a case of what do you do with that money, and as we've seen with Spurs before, when that money came in, it probably wasn't distributed in the best way, which set them back a little bit.
I just feel that if he wants to, obviously you said again about the project, if he wants to build that project, he needs to hang on to these players like Dele Alli, Harry Kane, again, as I said, needs to hold on to these players. If he wants to get to where he wants to get to, I mean, I've heard his interviews before and he's talked about, obviously, Arsene Wenger being there 10, 15 years. I thought if he wants to get to that same kind of par with Arsenal and be that big club, he needs to be able to hang on to these players.
Well, a striker has had a huge effect on North London derbies in recent years is Harry Kane. He's been chatting to Thierry Henry in Match Zone.
The game on Saturday, you guys didn't win there since, if I remember well, Kabul scored that goal, you remember? Yeah. I don't know how he even scored that goal, but he did. Yeah. So you guys didn't win there for a very long time. Do you think it's time to just do so?
I think so. I think it's important for us to start beating the big teams away, not just Arsenal, but the whole of the top six. We've done very well at home against them in recent years, but if we want to be challenging for that title, these are the types of games we need to win away from home. So I think we've had 2 draws the last 2 times we played there. So of course we're going to try and win the game.
Well, it's 5 in 5 for Harry Kane. If he scores 6, he'll be the first player to do so. They're away from home. We see top-level players, elite sportsmen in these wonderful arenas, but the away record of Mauricio Pochettino against the top 6, winning 1 in 16, is that something that would prey on their minds going into this game?
I don't think they'll be thinking about that, but it's just one of them stats that seems to be lingering over Spurs, unfortunately. But once again, we go into this whole, it's a derby, and kind of form goes out the window because 9 times out of 10, sometimes the better team who are going to the game on better form might not win the game. And this game's going to be no different because they're both going to be not wanting to lose. I mean, Tottenham probably go there feeling they're the superior side. Arsenal feel well holding second here. We're the bigger club. We've had the better results over the last few years. So it's going to be interesting, but as I said, it's a game we're looking forward to watching. But if Tottenham want to, as I said, get to that level, they need to go to these places and win games, especially if they want to win the title.
Do you, Matt, do you see the Emirates as an intimidating venue for an away team to come to?
I wouldn't use the word intimidating for the Emirates at the moment. I think it's a stadium that maybe is struggling to connect with the team a little bit at the moment. I think they'll always have their hardcore support Arsenal because it's such a big, successful club. And
is that with the shadow of perhaps Arsene Wenger's position and how he's been viewed towards the end of last season, coming into this season?
Definitely. I don't think the supporters are, that 100% behind him like they have been for the majority of that time. I think there's now an element of doubt, and there was obviously, it was so, up in the air, and the way the situation at the end of last season was communicated in a way that no one really quite knew what was going to happen all the way through to the FA Cup final. Was he going to stay or go? So I think it's hard for them to get their head around it, and they've almost started this season kind of thinking, well, let's see what happens. And I think that's the position that the home support's in.
Well, there's plenty of key battles on the pitch, but there's also one on the touchline in the game on Saturday where Mauricio Pochettino has got a lot of time for Arsene Wenger.
Arsenal is a great team. He's a fantastic manager. I respect him a lot and admire him. In a derby, it's difficult to see one favorite. Of course, if you see the history, Arsenal was above Tottenham in the last 20 years, and he deserves a lot of credit for that. To stay in a club 5 years is because you are a good manager. If you stay 10 years, it's because you must be very good. But to stay more than 20 years is because you are special.
Well, he's certainly a charmer, isn't he, Mauricio Pochettino? You mentioned, as Darren was watching that, you mentioned the fact that he sounds like he's an over Arsene Wenger, and the way that he talks so effusively about the Arsenal side. If he sees them as genuine rivals, does he go into that with a different frame of mind? We've seen Wenger up against Mourinho, we've seen him even crosswords with Guardiola. Is that a sign of perhaps his comfort, or is it just the due reverence that he holds Arsene Wenger in?
I think he's got so much respect for him. I mean, and as I said, I think he kind of feels that he wants to be on similar paths as Arsene Wenger, that whole building blocks of Tottenham Hotspurs, and I think that's why, as I said there when I was watching his interview, I felt like he's in awe of him, kind of. I mean, don't get me wrong, we'd love to beat him, I guess, on Saturday.
But with a smile.
With a smile, obviously, but I just feel he's got so much respect for him. That's one thing I will say, so much respect about what Arsene Wenger's done, how long he's been there, what he's done for Arsenal Football Club, and I think that's all it is, really.
Do you think, Matt, with a manager that you know in Arsene Wenger, and he's seen as a yardstick for the managers, perhaps the media and fans view it in slightly different ways in certain respects, but is when he's talking about him being special because he's been there for over 2 decades, do you get a sense of he'd like to be in that position that Arsene Wenger is in, but it's probably realistic to know that the days of a manager being at a club for, well, it's just 5 years as well, that's still a long time nowadays in football, isn't it?
5 years at a club, a top club, is an amazing achievement, and 20 is just in many ways ridiculous, isn't it, to think that is achievable? And
too many for you?
No.
Has he, if you take into account the last couple of years, is there a time when a manager says, yes, it's been great, but we then move on?
I'm sure there is a time when a manager comes to that conclusion themselves, and he's not at that place yet, which is why he's signed a 2-year extension and wants to take the team forward. So, you know, that was his choice. But I think Pochettino looks at that and just, like Dan said, it's just, wow, it's just an amazing achievement to be at a club like Arsenal and win the trophies that he's won. It is something that I'm sure he would like to achieve from the noises that he makes and the way he talks. I agree with you. I think he would be the type of person that would like to achieve something like that at one club.
From the way he talks and the way he quite genuinely empathises with his players and engenders a real togetherness, are there similarities between him and Arsene Wenger?
Yeah, I think so. I think he understands the psychology of the players well. I think what Arsene Wenger did, especially in his early reign at the club, is that he recruited amazingly well. And I think Pochettino has emulated that at Spurs. It's a different story recruiting exceptionally well for 20 years, and I think there's always going to be periods where you might get it's wrong. You know, the recruitment might be wrong, or there's not the right fit. And I think over that period of time, there's going to be, you know, signings that won't work out and ones that have been exceptional. And Arsene Wenger's always had that talent for picking that player out from nowhere and then being, you know, a world-class player. And that's his star quality for me.
Who's the bigger draw for you, Darren? Poch or Arsene Wenger?
It's kind of hard because obviously I think at different ends of the scale now. I mean, Arsene Wenger's obviously signed a 2-year extension. But it kind of looks like his time's coming to an end, whether it's a manager or he moves upstairs into Arsenal Football Club. Whereas Pochettino, as I said, reminds me of Arsene Wenger when he first went to Arsenal, that kind of building block. So
here's a question. If you're a player signing and you sign for Arsene Wenger and you think, well, he might be gone in 2 years into a different position, or you look at Mauricio Pochettino, who's 5-year contracts, 4-year contracts, he seems like, obviously there's the relative age of both managers, that's got to come into it, but one's building for a longer term, whereas one just seems to be doing it in little blocks.
I think if I'm a younger player, I think you've got to go for Tottenham, I believe. But then, again, it comes to the size of the football club. You know what I mean? I know Arsene Wenger's not going to be there, like in 2 years potentially. But then you look at, do you want to play for Arsenal Football Club? As I said, Arsenal Football Club's got massive history. I mean, they've won some of the biggest trophies in football. So I do think with Tottenham, they need to win a trophy. And I know they've finished...
To validate how far they've come.
Exactly.
But I guess the question is, would you, as a player, would you rather play... is the manager more important than the club, or the club more important than the manager if you were going to sign someone?
You tell me, which one?
Well, I don't know. I think...
You listen to Mauricio Pochettino and you think, wow, I'd like to play football for you. And maybe different... Arsene Wenger's viewed in a slightly different way. So there is the question, who draws you in the most? I
think, as a player, I think... For me, the manager's the most important thing because that's your personal relationship. The manager's the one that's going to pick you and put you in the team. It's his opinion of you that, for me, defines your success at the football club in many ways. So I think that's a really important relationship and an important picture to have as a player signing. Like I say, if you're going to draw a top player to think, I want to be a part of that project.
And Darren mentions the fact that when it's about being a young player, but what Mauricio Pochettino's done with young players that were seen to have a lot of potential, he seems to have brought them on and just launched them into the stratosphere, doesn't he?
Absolutely. I mean, they've gone along with his style, and he just seems to drive the players brilliantly. I think he's very organised. I think the training's very intense. So, you know, he's got a real structure to what he does, and it's probably very different to Arsene Wenger's in many ways.
Well, one of the constant criticisms of Arsene Wenger's Arsenal in recent years is they've been a tad soft. Here's his reaction to those accusations.
I remember many people told me at the time, 2002-03, will Pires be tough enough to play in the derby? But he's a guy who scored more goals than everybody in the London derby. So at the end of the day, it's down to the quality of the game.
And the Arsenal of 2017 are just as tough as the Arsenal of 2000, 2001?
Yes, it depends. We have to agree what is tough and not tough. You know, I believe that the football player has to be efficient, and that counts the most. Efficiency is, if your defender is not to make any mistakes, to win the ball, and when you're a striker, to put the ball in the back of the net. Is that tough or not tough? It doesn't matter too much. It's how efficient you are in your game.
So, Matt, was the word efficient thrown around a lot in 2001 with regard to the Arsenal side?
Oh, it's tough. It's efficient is the new tough. So it wasn't, but I think at that moment he inherited a very tough group of players. Mm-hmm. So I think, again, we compare the two managers. He came into a great backbone of a squad, mm-hmm. and he added real class and talent to it. But he inherited a real backbone of that, probably 97, 98, all the way through to 2000, 2001. And it really helped him as a manager, I feel, because that foundation was there. They were tough, mm-hmm. and they were committed players. And I agree with what he's saying in the sense that it's not just about whether or not you can kick someone mm-hmm. or be physical all the time. There's a real toughness to not give up, to want the ball.
Different kind of bravery.
To want the ball when it's not going well.
Do they have that? Does this Arsenal team of 2017 have that?
For me, it doesn't have it anywhere near that group of players. Mm-hmm. No, I don't think anyone could look at this current group and say that has the same quality in that sense as what the 2000, 2001 group had. But I think they've still got elements of that, and they're still top players and can play in certain matches where you think, that they do have that. For me, it's just the consistency. Is that there every week for Arsenal? And that's the biggest thing that I doubt, to be honest.
And does that doubt about the consistency, is that rooted in them not having the mental, and again we're using the word tough and I apologise for that, but the mental toughness to go again, to be as consistent against the top teams as it is to be against the teams that are struggling or mid-table? Yeah,
maybe. I think there's...
Was that where that 2001 team just... Next team, knock them away. Next team, knock them away. Just plough through it.
Absolutely, and I think players' fitness. I think that the team changes quite a lot, keeping players on the pitch, and all the various things that add up to a really successful season. I think they're just a little bit off it, and when it is off it, it's quite noticeable. And they tend to have matches or certain fixtures where they really suffer, i.e. away at like a Crystal Palace or somewhere like that, where the game...
you were going to say Stoke there.
Where the game's completely different, and you are reliant on just that one quality, and they've just been found a little bit wanting.
Is that something that you would agree with, Darren, in the fact that it's a team that, as Matt says, when it functions and fires on all cylinders, they're a delight to watch, but in the kind of crunch, it seems to have been a very quick stereotype for Arsenal in recent seasons to say that they're soft. Is that something that you can see in that side?
Well, I said Matty probably knows better than I do, but what I would say, I wouldn't say it was soft. I mean, that's probably a bit...
What does soft mean to you? I mean, when people are suggesting this, what does that mean?
Well, probably, as I said, what Matty said there, wanting the ball when it's difficult situations, going again Saturday, Tuesday, where it's difficult, completely different types of game. But obviously, from a kind of an outside perspective, looking at that 2001-2 team compared to the team now, what I'd say is, watching back then, that when they were in sticker situations, I still always felt like they'll still get something out of the game. I thought they had the players to get something out of the game, the mental toughness to just keep going and eventually getting that goal. Whereas now you look at Arsenal and you think, as soon as they go 1-0 down, you automatically start thinking the worst, and you think, oh, well, can they come back from this? And that's probably the biggest difference, I say, between the two sides, the mental side of things, because back then, you'd say they go 1-0 down, you'd say it's not a problem. They'll definitely get themselves back into the game. They'll probably go on to win it 3 or 4. Whereas now they go 1 down, then 1 quickly turns to 2, and then you start to think, oh, well, it's going to be another one of them days for Arsenal. And it's sad to see, but I think that's probably the biggest thing, is just the mental side, rather than just being out and out physically tough.
But having said that, I actually do think the physical element of it is again a key point, because, you know, in terms of energy, mobility and getting around the middle of the park is an area that people have really focused on, saying that they're off the pace a little bit there. You know, I think that kind of energy and mobility and physical element to Arsenal maybe just a little bit off it as well, to be honest.
And would that be seen as a frustration from the fans that hasn't been addressed? I suppose it's like comparing the Manchester United treble-winning team to the Manchester United now. That has changed, it's evolved, it's different. And so for Arsenal, is it a sense of beating Wenger with a stick that he created so wonderfully? Is that to you not necessarily out of order, but slightly inaccurate? Yeah,
I think so, because he clearly knows what those players' value are, because he's had them in his team that's won numerous trophies. So he's got
and a team that goes a season unbeaten. That's a mentally tough team, isn't it?
Absolutely, and players that are committed and they're physical and they have high energy and they're fit and all the rest of it. So he knows, he's got the picture of what that is. At the moment, that the team doesn't quite have that same level of it, but I think, you know, it's something that as a manager he needs to grow, and is probably trying and working hard to grow in the team.
And is it something that Arsene Wenger, if he does address that, do you sense a bit of an appeasement with the fans that they're moving in a slightly different direction? We love the beautiful game, but we love the beautiful game that wins us trophies.
Yeah, I think what it comes down to is winning trophies, and I guess that is, as Matt said, that's one area that people have maybe concentrated a little bit on, is the middle of the park. And once again, it's like going back to that say 2001 team, that kind of period. I remember them all being quite big guys. Patrick Vieira, a big powerhouse. Gilberto Silva, Edu, these are all big guys. So obviously, when fans probably look at that team there, because they always go back to the Invincibles at that period, to the team there, they're probably saying, well, hold on, where's our backbone? As Matty said earlier, where's the backbone? Where's the steel in the team? Them leaders. And to be fair, that's probably one thing now that probably maybe Arsenal really misses, is a real leader, a real character in the middle of the park, that when they do go to places, as you said earlier, Stoke away or Crystal Palace away, that when things ain't going right, that one player they can look at to go, well, listen, hold on, let's get ourselves out of this. We can still win this game. Just that leader, which maybe they quite lack. If Koscielny doesn't play, then who steps up to the plate?
Well, I mean, you can still get in touch at Sky Sports PL using the hashtag The Debate. But after the break, we talk Everton and just how much is a manager worth. Welcome back to The Debate. I'm with Darren Bent and Matthew Upson. We're now going to talk about what a manager is actually worth. Reports in the newspapers saying that Watford have turned down a $10 million approach by Everton for their manager Marco Silva. Now, we talk about players, we talk about star strikers costing a lot of money, and then we're looking at perhaps a club balking, or one club offering lower than perhaps what they define to be market value. Should we place more value on what a manager is possibly worth?
I feel so. Why not? I mean, the manager is probably the most important person, you know, around the playing staff. It's just funny how we do refer to that. We refer to that as compensation, don't we, as opposed to a transfer fee. And it is very much seen as that. It's like clubs look at that as a compensation.
Do you think that's just because of old kind of vernacular with it? We're not up to date with what it actually is, as you say. It's a transfer fee, you know, in all honesty, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, because, you know, another club wants them, and that's the fee that they want for having him. So, yes, you know, to look at it as a transfer fee would probably be more accurate, but, you know, a manager is huge. We see the impact that a manager can have on a group of players. And when you think, like you say, a fee of 50 million for just one player's impact on the game, whereas a manager can impact everyone. So, you know, that you would have to say that the fee should be and would be extremely high.
More important than a star striker or manager, Darren, do you think?
Oh, it's difficult. I mean, at the end of the day, the manager...
Depends with the striker.
It's difficult because I guess the manager picks the striker, but I mean, you can speak of the Spurs, like for instance, like Harry Kane, he's a star striker, scores a lot of goal. Then you've got Pochettino, the way as
who brought Harry Kane on and now has made him this.
Exactly. So it is difficult. So in some respects, you'd probably say the manager is more important than the star striker, because as he does affect everybody. He's the one who's worked for Harry Kane, to be fair. Harry Kane obviously brought him through, trusted him, given him the confidence, and obviously now look at him now. So in some respects, you'd say if a player's going for 50 million, then why say, for instance, someone wanted Pochettino, well, they're not going to pay that for him because of what he's done to Tottenham Hotspur Football Club.
If a manager's misfiring and it's going wrong, we've all been in dressing room where everything crumbles, doesn't it? Whereas you think a player could have a bad time, the rest of you
to sack him.
the rest of you could pick it up and run with it, and you can still win matches and kick on. But if the manager's having a bad time, I think it just completely oversees.
Do you think that's where the discrepancy is then? It's because a manager could, I mean, take Frank de Boer for 4 games in. There's not many players that have signed and got binned after 4 games either. So purely from a financial point of view, if you paid, say, as you said, £10 million compensation, that manager does terribly and is gone again in January, then there's more money there to be paid in paying up a manager, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it can go wrong very quickly, and they can, on the flip side of it, have a huge impact on a positive way. So I agree with you. I think it makes the marketplace very difficult to look at it as a transfer fee just because for that issue.
Do you think Marco Silva would have been a good fit for Everton?
Yeah, I mean, he's done really
Essentially could still be if they come out with more money.
I mean, I thought Everton might have gone more for Sean Dyche. I think he's really impressed me at Burnley. I mean, if you talk about, obviously, manager's worth, what he's worth to Burnley and what he's done for that football club is massive, to be fair. So that warrants a big transfer fee in itself. So, yeah, I mean, Silva would do well. He's done really well with Watford. And it does seem like a good fit. So it is quite strange why it's always compensation and why not a big transfer fee.
You talk about Marco Silva, you mentioned Sean Dyche there, in a sense of, it seems like it's been a very public courtship by Everton looking for new managers. As it is, I mean, there's always gossip and rumour mongering, isn't there? But if you keep going, and it has been a long time for Everton, hasn't it, since Koeman's got a relatively long time in football. If you're the 7th, 8th man on that list, what's your thoughts going into that football club? Just happy to get the opportunity, or I guess kind of tarnished by the fact that you weren't the first man that they came to? Sam Allardyce has said recently that the indecision put him off.
Yeah, I guess it's ambition at the end of the day. I mean, listen, Everton's a massive football club. It's a great job for any manager to get, I believe, because it's such a wonderful football club. So I guess it just depends, like, obviously, say, for instance, we're going back to Sean Dyche, he might have a plan in place for Burnley and where he wants to take that football club, so Everton might not fit where he sees himself. But for other managers like Silva, he might see this as a big opportunity to go hold in second year, got good backing of a football club, good stadium, fanatical fans, a good team, they've got good players in their football club that are probably underachieving. They could probably do something with this team, and it is a wonderful opportunity, I believe, for the right manager.
Matt, do you think, because it's not been sorted right now, I mean, obviously there's the school of thought of giving David Unsworth time to prove himself within the job, but for a club as big as Everton and a club as big as they want to be, surely, does it smack you of a little lack of forward planning?
Possibly, because I think at the end of last season, coming into this season, to picture themselves in this position would be, that they would never have dreamt that they would be searching for a new manager at this moment in the league position that they have. They've spent a lot of money, they've got a good group of players, so to kind of, like you say, not plan and leave it a little bit open to think, we'll see how this goes. It's a dangerous game because it can go south very quickly, and once you get too far detached or too far down the road back is a lot steeper. So for me, I would like to see them make a real clinical decision on somebody that they've known is available and get something done and get somebody in place where they're going to take the team forward in the philosophy of how the club and the manager want to go.
Well, I mean, do they look at Palace at the weekend, Everton, as a 6-pointer? They've made a change of manager, seem to be making marginal gains, don't they?
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they're picking up, obviously, results. You said small gains, and I think I agree with Matty there. What they need to do is, for a size of a football club like Everton, they need to go, right, this is the guy we're after, we're going to try and get him. I don't think what they won't want to do is kind of get a manager as a stopgap, kind of just to get us through the season, and then we'll see where we're at. I think they need to get a manager in that is going to go, right, listen, this is where I see Everton Football Club going, this is where I believe we should be, and give him time to obviously lay his philosophies and his style on the football team. It's going to take time because of where they are on the table. Confidence is probably low, so they definitely need to go and find that one person that's going to go, okay, you're our guy, we believe in you, we're going to put obviously everything to you to try and get us to where we want to be, and give him time.
Well, that's a Premier League weekend coming up off the back of an international break where England went from no hopers to relative possibilities. Well, here's what Jose Mourinho's take on the young Lions is.
I think England must have a chance. because the players are really, really good. A great generation of players, different ages, different qualities, good experience at the club level, playing all of them in the Premier League, playing the majority of them in the Champions League too. So I think England has great potential.
Well, I said he had something to say about it. I didn't say be overly excited about perhaps England's opportunities coming into the World Cup. But look where we are now. Look at where we were before the two games, before we blooded several younger players, and going into when the draw is on December the 1st, so pre-draw, post the first kind of round of friendlies. Where are we at?
I think that we're at a place where the manager, for me, has shown that he's got some direction, which I'm so pleased about. And I think he's been in the job quite a short period, but for me, he's starting to make clear choices and ideas about where he wants to take the team, with formations, with selection process, with the type of player that he wants in the squad. And I'm really pleased about that, because I think whether or not those decisions, we can sit and there'll always be an opinion on whether that decision's right or wrong. For me, the point is that there is a decision and that it's a clear one, and we're going down that path, and I'm excited to see how it's going to turn out.
And that excitement comes from, as you say, somebody in a position of power making decisive statements of intent. We talked about the teams that he put together, how he wants that team to play. Chris Smalling not being in it, so does that then mean that for Chris Smalling? And the players that he's brought in have made that statement. So moving forward, do you feel there's a clearer vision now? And after that, will he have time to implement the long term of that clearer vision?
Well, that's a very difficult one to do for me. I mean, we look to be wanting to use the ball more, coming out from the back, hence comments about Chris Smalling, selection about players that I need to handle the ball in my back three or back five, which I think is the absolutely right way to go. If you're going to win a tournament, a World Cup or a European Championships, you have to be able to use the ball. I think it's very difficult to do it in a different way. And I just feel that those statements and those type of philosophies do take time to build. And it's not just about him having hours on the training pitch. It's about the development and the youth and the culture of the country and how we play football to come in. So I think that's a matter of years. But for the short term, you know, to work with those players, there's several players in that group that do play like that at their club level and do work with managers that regularly want to play with the ball. Stones, for instance, is a key example of somebody that's really comfortable and works on that philosophy every day. So I think it's a good decision. And like I said, I'm excited that we've got that vision and the direction, and I want to see how it pans out.
Well, you went into the 2010 World Cup with a slightly older squad. Do you think that that culture change was absolutely necessary to shift it, perhaps younger players, not necessarily hungrier players, but to give players the time to develop within the framework of an England team?
Yeah, I think you always your best blend is when you can bring them in with some really established senior players. I think that's your ideal solution, to have the experience there. You'd say that the squad as a whole is actually vastly inexperienced when you look at the senior players and their experience and their caps, probably compared to years gone by where you've gone into squads where they've been really, a lot of players who've got a lot of international goals or caps. So it is a young group in the whole, but there's lots of positives in that, in terms of the expectation might be a little bit less, the pressure on them might not be quite as high. I think that's big for England, going into a tournament. The pressure is normally the one thing that has tripped a lot of
good England teams. It's like a freedom with the younger kids, I guess, because no one knows. It's like an unknown quantity, really. I mean, as you said there about a lot of the players, obviously a lot of caps, a lot of goals. And to be fair, we've kind of struggled really in major tournaments, but maybe this might be the tournament where people may be looking at us as much, and all of a sudden we've got a young, bright squad that surprised a few people, and before you know it, we're obviously progressing.
Do you feel that when you're wearing that shirt, when you're representing your country at that highest level, can you solely focus on the football match? Can you detach what the reaction to it is, the build-up to it is, just to purely perform? Or can't you separate the two?
Yeah, I mean, in some respects, listen, that is the highest honour to represent your country, and it's hard because obviously International Week, everything's about what team is going to selection. Every day is about the team is going to pick or who's going to play, who's going to perform, and it is a lot of pressure. But to be fair, I always felt anyway. I always was solely focused on the match. Is when you was getting to the stadium and getting changed in the dressing room. I mean, beforehand there was always so much going on. But I always felt once I got to the stadium that was when I was solely focused on the game and getting the job done.
Do you echo those sentiments, Matt?
Yeah, no, I think it goes in stages, because first you've got to be playing well enough to get selected. Then you get selected, you've got to go to the training camps and you've got to think, well, I want to train and play well enough to get in the team. So your first thought is I'm competing against my own teammates because I want to play. And then once you get to that point of where you're in the team, then it is all about focus. And I say there's so many distractions. If you want to sit and think about it and play that.
What about in a World Cup environment? Are those distractions magnified?
Definitely.
Because the eyes of the world, not just the football world, the world are on you, aren't they?
For sure.
Watching you every move.
Definitely. And switching that off is a major skill. That is what performance is.
Does that separate the best from the very top of the tree? That's
100%. Because in that 6-week training camp, you're not going to become a better player. It's just whether or not you can handle and mentally put yourself in a position to perform. Be physically and mentally ready to go and give the best account of yourself. That's all you can do in that position. And that for me is what playing for England, if players that do that and do that well, have good international careers.
And for you, Darren, is that where this team is going to prove itself, that mental side of it? We know they can play, we know all of them are very, very good footballers. How mentally can they get over this mountain that we present in front of them?
I think they'll be fine, because a lot of them guys are playing at high levels anyway, Champions League and stuff. And to be fair, they play with no fear. I mean, some of them the other night, especially the first game against Germany, for instance, Loftus-Cheek, never obviously played for England before, plays in it like he'd been playing for 10, 15 years. He was fantastic. So I think that's going to be the biggest weapon with England going into the World Cup, is that there is no fear. Because, as I said, there's going to be no expectation on them, because they are going to be all young. They're all playing at their clubs. Relatively, most of them are playing at their clubs, playing at a high level. So I believe we'll have a good World Cup.
Fantastic. Maybe you still get in touch at Sky Sports PL using the hashtag The Debate, and I'll be putting your questions to the fellas next. Welcome back to The Debate. I'm with Matthew Upson and Darren Bent, and we've been asking you for your questions on Twitter, and you've answered. Thank you very much. Right, fellas, it's a Spurs start, so I'll start with you, Darren. Would you still consider Poch a success at Tottenham if he doesn't win any silverware during his time at the club?
It's a difficult one.
We didn't ask for easy questions, though.
Yeah, he's... No, I wouldn't say he wouldn't have failed, no. I mean, he's transformed Tottenham into one of the biggest forces in English football. Yeah, I'm sure he'd like to win a trophy, and I'm sure they will do at some stage. But if he doesn't while he's there, I wouldn't say it's a failure.
Can you judge a manager on the intangibles, the things that he hasn't won, the atmosphere that is created? Then you can judge him as a success or as a failure?
Depends how. It completely depends on how you want to judge it. For me, if he doesn't,
how would you judge it? Silverware?
No, no, I wouldn't judge him. I look at what he's doing there, how he's going about it, what he's bringing to the club. Is first class. Silverware, yeah, of course, tops it off. But for me, I could never look at him as not being a success if he didn't win anything.
Can you now look at it as the fact of Champions League qualification, moving to a bigger stadium, what that might generate in terms of revenue, perhaps player that they're able to attract? Is that then when you move that focus away from trophies to actual progress?
Yes, it's the vision, and I think if you're a player now with ambition, you look at a side like Tottenham and a manager like Pochettino, and he's someone you'd want to play for, and a side you'd want to play for in that fantastic new stadium. So, as Matty, I agree with Matty what he said there. It's not all about trophies, especially the way he's going about his business and the way Tottenham are playing football and the direction they're going. I think it's about how he's transformed Spurs from a club that's always, I say, on the cusp to all of a sudden now one of the best forces in English football.
Well, we mentioned Dele Alli earlier on, and here's a question about him. Will it be a bad effect or a good effect on Dele Alli having a super agent and super contract at such a young age?
Well, it's all to the individual. Ali has shown for me that he plays like he's in the park sometimes. But that's what I love about him. He plays in a way...
No rules.
He just plays in a way that's raw, isn't it? You can just see he naturally enjoys it. He picks up positions, he roams. And I love watching him play. And I think, he's obviously a huge asset for the club. He's earning really good money. I'm sure contractually they'll be looking to improve that at some point or what have you. And, I just think it's part of the game now. You employ... a good.
Is that what it is? Almost like a player's staff. It's just the way that a top-end Premier League player operates now.
Yeah.
I can't believe there's many that would go in and say, it's all right, I'll do my own contract negotiation.
Yeah, no.
We've all played with players that would have done that, but I can't see anyone at this level doing that now.
No, he needs it. Obviously, he's going to want an agent. I mean, as Matty said, he's playing really, really well at the moment. And I said, it is the individual at the end of the day. I mean, is it about money with him? What is it about playing for Tottenham? And when I look at Dele Alli, he doesn't strike me as someone who's more worried about getting the big contracts and moving abroad. It looks like he's enjoying his football at Tottenham, enjoying playing for Pochettino. And I think because Pochettino's showing that faith in him and how he's playing, I think that's why we're getting the best out of him.
We talk about a player enjoying his time at Spurs and playing for Mauricio Pochettino. Here's question number 3. Will Harry Winks start at the World Cup?
I think if he continues how he is for Tottenham, I believe he will do. I mean, I think he's made leaps and bounds how he's been playing this season. I think he's been fantastic. So there's no reason why he shouldn't start. I mean, listen, there's going to be a lot of other midfielders that are going to be vying for that role because we've got some good English midfield players in there. So it will be difficult for him. But as I said, if he can continue and Spurs can continue
is that vital that if Spurs continue to do well, him playing doing well, that gets him into that World Cup starting 11?
Of course, because I mean he was fantastic against Real Madrid, which is the top end. You know, I mean, of club football. So I believe if Tottenham can continue in the Champions League and doing really well, and the Premier League, and he continues to progress, then there's no reason why he can't be one of the first names.
It's a role that's open for grabs, isn't it? For me, I think it's a role when you look at the.
Is that like team. Almost a perfect timing element of coming up at the right time?
For him, it's brilliant. He's in a great moment, and that role in the England team, for me, is up for grabs. It's an area that hasn't really been nailed down, and it's up for grabs.
There's another question. Any predictions on who could come up from the Championship next season?
I would say you obviously Wolves look very good. You know, they've invested well. They've
might have George Mendes taking Dele Alli there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's taken a few there, hasn't he? They've got a nice style. Manager's got them playing well. They look very solid, and Wolves to me look like they could also play and adjust to the Premier League quite well at the moment.
For you, Darren, any ones that you've seen that you think they're the yardstick?
I'd like to think we'll be there, thereabouts. I'd like to think that we'll be there, thereabouts. I think
as you've gradually built into your Championship campaign as well, haven't you?
Yeah, we're starting to. I mean, we had a bad result against Reading, but we are going in the right direction. I mean, before that, we'd won 4 on the bounce, so I believe we're going in the right direction. But I can't see anyone else other than Wolves probably walking away with this season. I mean, they came to Priory Park this season. They were fantastic. I mean, they pass off the pitch. They play such an expansive way. Like it's crazy, to be fair. So the one team in the Championship I can see definitely get promoted would be Wolves, I'd have to say.
And we've seen, haven't we? I mean, the relative quality of the Championship. What you've seen this year, we've seen all 3 teams come up in Newcastle, Huddersfield and Brighton acquit themselves very, very well. Still very early on in the season, we've got to mitigate by saying that. But is that quality there that we've seen jump up into the Premier League this season?
Yeah, I mean, I think with the 3 sides that have gone up, what I'd say about them is that they've shown no fear, and they've said to themselves, well, listen, we're not going to be one of these yo-yo clubs that goes up and comes straight back down. We're going to give it a right go. And then when you look at Huddersfield, I mean, we spoke earlier about the managers and transfers. I mean, the Huddersfield manager has been fantastic for them. I mean, I spoke to Incy a little bit, and he says how good he is and how the players love playing for him. So he's vital to the way Huddersfield play. He's probably one of the main reasons why they're doing so well this season.
Stay in the division, you think, Huddersfield?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the way they play football, the energy and the way they're going about their business, I think they're going to catch and cause a few surprises this season. So, yeah, I can't see them going down.
For you, Matt, Huddersfield staying up?
Yeah, I think so. I think that first season's important, but it gets harder and harder as the seasons go on for Huddersfield, I should imagine.
Gentlemen, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much. Let's have a quick look at what's coming up for you this weekend on the Premier League, Sky Sports PL. On Saturday, it's a huge North London derby. Arsenal versus Tottenham, 11:30am, Sky Sports Premier League. Super Sunday, we see Watford take on West Ham in David Moyes' first game as West Ham manager, 3:30pm, Sky Sports Premier League. And Monday Night Football is Brighton versus Stoke from 7pm, also Sky Sports Premier League. But from myself, Darren and Matt, we hope you enjoyed the debate. We'll see you next time.